Hi, listeners. My name is Alex, AlexKid71 on the forum. Yes, I started to play BeamNG somehow in the beginning of the pandemic times and fell in love with the game. I thought it would be so nice to make a map level, something from my childhood memories where I grew up. So I wanted to do something with GIS data and stuff like that. And somehow I made it to import GIS data from Blender via Heightmap to BeamNG and started building in the world editor. And I did stuff, and I wanted to do it better, and then the things started to happen, like how to build sidewalks, how to build nice guardrails. You see the guardrails here. I took over an idea from the PGS Drift and Rally map. uh, he took just a mesh road and used some fancy, decent textures on it. And I took over the idea, made my own textures, and you see my guardrails here. They are looking quite good, but they are not perfect. I would like to have real guardrails and real side posts and stuff like that, and sidewalks. And then the hustle begins because you need to do it somehow in Blender. And if you didn't start in Blender with all your terrain stuff, or you change your terrain very often in the world editor, um, it's not so easy to get it in Blender. So my idea was I have to get the height map in Blender, get my terrain in Blender, and then I can model guardrails there, sidewalks there. And the idea, of course, is to place a lot of objects in Blender and export it as a forest items because it uses, I don't know, less resources in BeamNG. I read about that, so I want to do it as well. But how to do that? And then I started to crawl over the forums, importing height maps to Blender. You have it very often the other way around, of course, it's fair, but nobody really explains how to do it uh, to go the other way around. So from BeamNG to Blender, and what is very important, I did it somehow, but sometimes the heights didn't work well. It wasn't very exact what I did there. And now I thought, what can I do to get really decent height map terrain in Blender? And some people wrote that the Torque 3D height map is not accurate enough, and I wanted to test it. And today I want to show you how I tested it. I have a quite beefy computer, which is necessary for this approach I use today, but there are, of course, some other ways around. You can do that, I'll tell you later. What I did first is, of course, I went to the word editor and exported. You go to the terrain tools and you export all of your terrain. So you have to click on your terrain, search, export folder. I use one in my level, uh, open it, and it started to export. Wait a moment. I go up here. And you see the terrain is exported. It changed so far because it's not the same date. And the important file here for our experiment is, of course, the height map. I'll show you later. Okay, I started to make a height map, Blender. Wait a moment. You see it here. And I took over an overlay image from the terrain, a base color terrain image from my level, so that I see what is where, which is quite important if you want to do stuff like that. Looks good. You see, it's 3D. The height map worked. How I did it, I explain later because I will delete it and do it from scratch. But I wasn't. This was what I did in the beginning, and it was not that accurate. What I said, it was some meters are missing, and some places you put something there, and it's floating in the air, or it's under the terrain, and it was disgusting. So then I came to the crazy idea just to export the terrain from BeamNG as a DAE file. You can do that. It lasts long, this process. I don't know, 20 minutes or something. Just leave BeamNG alone and do it. Yes, I don't do it now in real time because we would go crazy in this tutorial. Uh, you just go to the terrain and say File, Export, selected file as Collada. Then it gets completely unresponsive. A white overlay, and you think, okay, it dies. Don't touch it. Go take a coffee, smoke a cigarette, prepare meal for the evening, whatever. Read a Stephen King book from the beginning to the end. I don't know, but somehow at a special time, it's somehow done. So I got out my terrain DAE file, which is a whopping 1.6 gigabytes. So you can imagine what that means for Blender. It's the same, yes. If you import it to Blender, I don't do it now, but I show you where it is in Blender. Of course, you go to uh, File, Import, Collada, and then just select the DAE file. And then Blender gets unresponsive for at least half an hour, I think. Something like that. You think, okay, crap, you can't use it. Do the same again, read another book. And if you come back, perhaps it's imported. So for me, it worked well. And if it's imported and you save it in Blender, it's loads fast and it's quite usable. Yes, I show you. I imported it. I just hide the grid with a height map, and I show you here the imported DAE file. Yes, you see here is my quarry, which has the most elevation differences. So that's a good example. Yes, because this, of course, fits exactly one-to-one scale like the terrain of BeamNG because it's just a DAE export. Yes, it's exactly the right scale and stuff like that. What is important, of course, if you want to use it later on, if you place things on it, make your locations right. Yes, you have to take it out of your BeamNG and then you must make some experiments. I needed quite a lot of time, would be another tutorial because it was completely trial and error. I didn't get it another way. So, okay. But this now is really aligned with BeamNG. So if I put something here, it's at the exact same place in BeamNG if I import it. This is what is needed. So why do I do all this hustle and stuff then with the height map? I could use this DAE file um, as my reference. I could do it, but what I didn't get is the overlay like on the grid. You know, on the grid you see the map. Here you see the map, and it helps me. And if I use the same material for this DAE file, I get only a big green mess. Yes, and I don't know how to solve it. And of course, the height map thing needs a lot less resources if you reduce it. I don't know exactly how the modifier is called. If you make it smaller, so. But of course, you can make the DAE smaller as well. So it would work, but never mind. So now the interesting thing. Um, what did I do to get the grid running? I just hide this grid, yes, and do another one. oh no, I don't do it. It takes too long time. Just explain it. If you want to make a grid, you just add a mesh grid. There's a grid. Oh, I don't see it. Here's grid. And then you can say how many squares it has on X and Y and Z, X and Y level. I used exactly the same figures like my level. You see, it's a bit funny number because I used 4096 for X and Y, but I had a scale of 1.2 to match the terrain size. Yes, I need it for my level. So and 4096 multiplied by 1.2 is 4915. So this is the figure. And the Z size, so the height of the level, you can just take out of the export of the terrain. Yes, you somehow defined it in the beginning of your work. And if you take a look at so slow now. If you take a look at the JSON file, which is exported with a preset, wait a moment. You see here you have a height scale of 250, but in the end it's only 249 on my side. I don't know why, because you see it if you take a look at the DAE file I imported, it's 249. This is the first hint to get the scale right. Use not that number, but the real height of the DAE file. Yes. So, okay. Okay. When your grid is ready, you have to add a displace modifier. For the displace modifier, you need your height map. Yes. The height map is here is defined in the textures. How do you do it? You import the height map here to Blender as a texture material, as a texture. And you search the file, the terrain height map. What's important here, you see the path to the folder. What's important, take raw format. Raw or linear works well. Raw is better because it's really the 16-bit raw information. Really, you need it if you use sRGB or something like that. You have only 8-bit file recognition, and then you have only 256 grayscale levels. With RAW, you have 65,000 something grayscale levels, which is really important not to get stairs and steps and stuff like that, and to get it really accurate. Yes. And then, of course, if your level is 4096 and your bitmap is 4096, it's fine. Mine is a bit larger, so I have to use the extend method for the image. Therefore, it's so blurred here. And then it covers your whole grid. Okay, I go back to the displacement. So then you have to displace it. I had to test a bit with the coordinates. UV fitted the best for me. Yes, you have some things like local, global object. I'm a Blender noob. I have only an idea of things, but UV worked well for me, so perfect. You don't have to enter a UV map or something. Direction Z, because Z is the height, X, Y, Z. Yes. I think normal would work too, but I took Z. And then, this is the funny thing here, the strength. The strength is how strong the whole thing should be displaced. And perhaps you see the number 0.249. You saw I had 250 height, but the DAE file was only 249 meters. And here I think at one something is it's another scaling, so I had to use a fraction of it. So 0.249 is the strength. And normally you would say perfect, yes, because this mid-level normally sits as a default value in Blender 0.5. Yes, and if of course it's really a big file. I have my task manager running, and you see it uses already 20 gigabytes. The Blender thing. So, but now it did it, and if I really put my terrain DAE in, you see the levels are somehow different. Yes, uh, this can't work. So it would never fit. Yes. First of all, I said, okay, this mid-level thing, I don't need it. I put it to 0. But if I put it to 0, wait a moment, it doesn't fit as well. So why? I have no clue about that, the mathematics behind it. So I started then because I didn't want another. You don't have to play. Strength must be really fitted somehow to your height because this is really how strong the elevation is. Yes, if I would say here, copy it. Yes, I would say, I don't know, 0.5 wouldn't fit at all. Yes, you will see it. Ah, it's still calculating. Wait a moment. You see, it does completely different things because it strengthens all the elevation. Yes, so we really need this value from the height of our level, terrain level in BeamNG. And the mid-level thing is pure testing. Yes, I just started to test. Okay, so okay, 0.5 wasn't it? Take 0.2, stuff like that. Ah, okay, now it's still calculating. Wait a moment. So then I said 0.2, for example. Does it get better or worse? So you see it's getting better, okay. And somehow I tested it, and even one decimal point wasn't enough. I really had to take this, gotten it, that's great. But somewhere I wrote it down. I think it was 0.135 because I really zoomed in a lot. 0.135, enter. I will be never a friend of Blender because the UX thing is, I don't know. I hate it. Yes, but here you see perhaps there's a little bit still, even all the navigation in this 3D things. What should I learn next? Okay, but it's more or less fitting. Yes, perhaps you can do something more fractional here, but for my needs, it's well enough. And what you can see is that the height map is very accurate. The height map of BeamNG, because with this values you see all this checkered things here, because my grid is really almost on par with the terrain DAE, and you see it. Yes, it's perfect. Even if you go in and go nearer, you see it very well. I made, for example, here a small cube. Make it visible. Where is it? Oh, it's somehow sleeping. Ah, here's my cube from the wrong side. Here's my cube. And see if I switch off the DAE, there might be a little bit of difference, but I think for setting some posts or guardrails, it doesn't matter. So what I do now, I have this nice export objects tool for BeamNG, BeamNG Easy Export. Take a look at GitHub. It's a cool guy. It's a really good tool if you want to make fast exports of DAE collada files with your lots and stuff like that. You can now set up here and just export it. I export the cube to my level folder. And if I go to Beam now and go to the player car, because I set it exactly to the player car. Here's the player car. Here's the test cube. I throw it in. And because I did all this positioning stuff in Blender already, so that the terrain is perfectly aligned to, oh, wait a moment. I just, wait a moment, I just switch off the motor. I don't know, doesn't matter. I don't know the key now. I go back. I just have the test cube here, put it in, and I can just enter 000. And you see nothing. Ah, it worked well. My friend, what did I do? Somewhere else? Why? Ah, 1 0 less. Here, I forgot the Z. And now you see the cube is at the exact same position like in Blender. So you see it's aligning well. And now the idea, if your PC really doesn't cope exporting the DAE file from BeamNG, and you just want to go the heightmap way without the DAE export and import, which really lasts long, but it's worth the wait because it's quite easy to align it. You saw it. Um, you can, of course, use some reference objects. So you make some reference objects, you put some assets in at high points and low points of your terrain here. You export them to Blender or import them there. Use exactly the same XYZ coordinates in Blender, put them there. And then, of course, you can do the same thing with the displacement I did. Yes. You put some cubes somewhere and you just play around with this mid-level value until your assets you imported are exactly on the ground of your terrain here, of your grid, which is displaced. This would be the possibility to do it without the importing of the DAE file. Yes, so far. So if someone has an idea how to get an overlay image to the terrain DAE, just test it, and you find a solution, just write me. Would be great, because I like the idea of using a DAA instead of all this heightmap puzzle. Yes, thank you. That's it. If I have other things and findings, I do another tutorial. Okay, and check out my map deployment tool, please. It's somewhere in the forum under tools and utilities. I work hard on it, and I think it's worth using it if you want to deploy a map and want to save some space and stuff like that, and want to take a look if there are errors inside, because I do a lot of processing of your map data. Yeah, thanks. That's it. Bye bye. How do I stop the recording? I have no clue.